Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari check if it's actually even going live. Not sure. Give me a glass of water, please. Glass of water. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Today we're going to be reading from Adi Leela chapter 1 from text 95 to 102. So I'm just going to read them through. Yanhara prashrade eta mohayanasha tamonasha karikare tatvera prakasha. By the grace of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, this darkness of ignorance is removed and the truth is brought to light. Tattvavastu Krishna Krishna Bhakti Prema Rupa Nama Sankirtana Sabha Ananda Swarupa. The absolute truth is Sri Krishna, and loving devotion to Sri Krishna exhibited in pure love is achieved through congregational chanting of the holy name, which is the essence of all bliss. Surya Chandra Bahire Ratamase Vinashe Bahirvashtugata Pata Adise Prakashe. The sun and moon dissipate the darkness of the external world and thus reveal external material objects like pots and plates. Dui Bahirdaye Rakshali Andakara Dui Bhagavata Sange Karana Satkara. But these two brothers, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, dissipate the darkness of the inner core of the heart, and thus they help one meet the two kinds of Bhagavatas, persons or things in relationship with the personality of Godhead. E Bhagavata Bada Bhagavata Sastra Ara Bhagavata Bhakta Bhakti Rasa Patra. One of the Bhagavatas is the great scripture Srimad Bhagavatam, and the other is the pure devotee absorbed in the mellows of loving devotion. Dui Bhagavata Dwara Diya Bhakti Rasha Tanhara Hirdaye Tanra Premi Haya Vasa. Through the actions of these two Bhagavatas, the Lord instills the mallows of transcendental loving service into the heart of a living being. And thus the Lord, in the heart of his devotee, comes under the control of the devotee's love. Eka Adbhuta Samakali Donhara Prakasha Ara Adbhuta Chitta Guhara Tamakari Nasha. The first wonder is that both brothers appear simultaneously, and the other is that they illuminate the innermost depths of the heart. E Chandra Surya Dui Parama Sadaya Jagate Rabhagya Gaude Karila Udaya. These two, the sun and moon, are very kind to the people of the world. Thus, for the good fortune of all, they have appeared on the horizon of Bengal. The celebrated ancient capital of the Sena dynasty, which was known as Gauda Desha or Gauda, was situated in what is now the modern district of Malda. Later, this capital was transferred to the ninth or central island on the western side of the Ganges at Navadvip, which is now known as Mayapur, and was then called Gaudatpura. Lord Chaitanya appeared there, and Lord Nityananda came there and joined him from the district of Birbhum. They appeared on the horizon of Gauda Desha to spread the signs of Krishna consciousness, and it is predicted that as the sun and moon gradually move west, the movement they began 500 years ago will come to the Western civilizations by their mercy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu drive away the 5 kinds of ignorance of the conditioned souls. In the Mahabharata Udyoga Parva, 43rd chapter, these 5 kinds of ignorance are described. They are accepting the body to be the self, making material sense gratifications one's standard of enjoyment, being anxious due to material identification, lamenting, and 5, thinking that there is anything beyond the absolute truth. The teachings of Lord Chaitanya eradicate these 5 kinds of ignorance. Whatever one sees or otherwise experiences, one should know to be simply an exhibition of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's energy. Everything is a manifestation of Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hey Shri Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prasharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatade Shitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Okay. So from these verses we can see that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they appeared as the sun and the moon, and to give us the most highest thing, which is the love for Krishna. Srila Rupa Goswami also had a conversation with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Prayag, which is today Allahabad, and he was saying that you are the most munificent of all incarnations. Munificent meaning you have given something very generously, more than necessary. And you're giving something more than necessary, a lot more, and that is that you're giving the love of Krishna. We will hopefully try and understand a little bit more what that means. He said you are more kind, more generous than when you appeared as Krishna, because when Krishna appeared, he gave us some conditions. He said you have to surrender, and if you do surrender, then I will accept you. But you didn't make us any conditions, and I was trying to think of an example how to put this. It's like when your children ask you if they want to have a movie night over the weekend, and if they want to have the movie night, they want, the whole works with popcorn and everything, and then the mother would ask, well, if you want this movie night, then did you finish your work in the week? Did you clean your room? Did you do your laundry? Did you wash and fold and put away your clothes? If you do all that, then then we'll see how it goes. Then we will have this movie night. And so in a similar way, Krishna says, well, if if you want to come to me, if you want to chill out with me, then he lays out different conditions, but he says yagyarta karmano bandhana Yagyarta karmano nyatra loko karmana bandanaha loko yam karmana bandanaha tadartam karmano karmano kaunteya mukta sangha samachara.
Well, karmano is at the start.
Yes. Anyway, my kids are correcting me, which is great. I'm really happy. So it is tat kartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So Krishna wants us to do, he was advising Arjuna, but it applies to us also. So Krishna wants us to do the work in order to please him, do the work as a sacrifice for him. And if you do it that way, then you're not going to be bound in this material world. And if you do it in such a way to please him, in that way that you will be not, you wouldn't be attached to this world. And also, he wants us to be tolerant when we go through difficult times, and not be excessively attached when things go well. When he says matra sparsastu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkha agamapayano anityas tam stitik sashva bharata. And he also says later on, he wants us to think of him, to worship him, to be his devotee, pay our homage to him. And in that way he promises that we will come to him because, and he says this to Arjuna, priyo asime, because you're my friend. Manmana bhava mat bhakta mat yaji mam namaskuru. Mam eva ishasi satyam te something priyo asime, pratijane priyo asime. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu makes no such conditions. And it is just like, again, with the mother example, when she says, well, okay, this week you didn't do everything, and we will have the movie night anyway, but tomorrow onwards, I want you to do all of this that you said you will do. So in the same way, with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he made no conditions for us. The requirement or the entry to practice Krishna consciousness is just having some faith and a little bit of enthusiasm, and there's no other qualification. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu allowed everybody to come, so many people can join in, but it is when we don't keep the promises that we said we will keep, which is what that tracks our own progress. Which is why in the beginning, we all have these experiences when we are able to, when we go to a program in the beginning, when we go to a Sunday feast or a Harinam, and we chant the Hare Krishna, we are super enthusiastic and we are open-minded about everything, accepting, and we go in humbly, and we can hear the Maha Mantra in our heads for days, and that happens for a while, and we love everything about it, and we love the prasadam, we love the devotees, and we love everything, and that goes on for a while until we start taking things for granted, and we are not totally aware of our thinking and the little slips we make and the offenses we make along the way that kind of tracks our progress. So that's our fault. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given this for everybody freely, and there's no distinction for whatever we have done in the past. So this is where our problem really begins, when we are not really keeping our promises. But in order to understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes, we need the mercy of Lord Nityananda. And who is Lord Nityananda? Lord Nityananda is Balaram himself. He is his first expansion. And Balaram, even though it's his first expansion, he is none different from Krishna in terms of potency. And he manifests himself as the servant. He serves Krishna in all the five main rasas, including Madhurya. and he also expends himself as Karanakashaya Vishnu, Garbhodakashaya Vishnu, and Kshirodakashaya Vishnu to maintain the material world. So, and you know, this is how he is. That's his, like, you can say, his job specification. I mean, like, his duty is serving, but he's doing it out of love. Like, there's so much love that is described, that his nature is, he's constantly in drowning, he's constantly intoxicated in love of Krishna. And you know, when we say Haha Prabhu Nityananda Premananda Sukhi, you know, he's always happy. You know, when there is a pastime where when Nityananda appears to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Navadvip, he comes and many things happen, but he comes, and after he's bathing in the Ganga, and he comes and not wearing very much, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu covers him, and later on, you know, he asks him for his kopina, and he tears it to many pieces and gives it to everybody, and he tells them to wear it on your head, because it is his mercy that you need to understand anything, and to understand to understand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Even when we sing even when we sing Hey no Nitai Vine Vai Radha Krishna Pai Te Nai. So when we sing that, this is sung by Narottam Das Thakur in his song Manasiksha. So when we sing that, we say, without taking the shelter of his lotus feet, we are not going to be able to understand the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So we really need to form this relationship with Nityananda Prabhu, and Nityananda Prabhu, he, by forming this relationship, you know, when we sing Se Sambandha Nahiyar Tirthaja Mujhe Lota Se Pasu Borodura Char. So when we sing this, when it says, like, when you do not have, or when you've forgotten this relationship with Nityananda Prabhu, you start living your life like a pasu, like an animal, and you fall back into living with very basic animal propensities. And it's very interesting, because it is said that, you know, we animals can be domesticated, animals can be tamed, you know, like, you know, they say there's about 14 animals out there that can be tamed, and they can be, you know, their nature can be changed. But humans, when they become when they start behaving like animals, their behavior cannot be tamed, and that is because they have a higher intelligence, and they are given this higher intelligence to pursue, to ask questions beyond just maintaining their bodies. And if they do not use their intelligence for those reasons, then they start using it to live like an animal, very sophisticatedly, but at the same time through exploitation of resources or other people, and causing so much chaos, as you know, as we can see today. So the intelligence that are given to human beings are meant for that. So if they do not use that, they tend to live very much like animals. And it is also said that, you know, just by having laws and rules, you cannot make a thief an honest man. So it's a saying, but it is true. I mean, we can see even for ourselves, like, knowing how some things are wrong, we cannot help but keep doing it. It is just that we are forced to do certain things, even by knowing that it is wrong, even though that we do know that it's wrong. And it's the same question that was posed by Prahlad Maharaj, and when he says, what is the use of atonement, prayaschita, what is the use of prayaschita when people know when some things are wrong and they see that it is a wrong thing to do, they can see the reaction of doing that is wrong, and yet they are drawn to do it. So what is the point of atonement? Like, if you put somebody in a prison and they come out and they're still going to go back, to act on it, or at least still have the same tendency or desire to act in that way. So what is the point? And Sukadev Goswami, Parikshit Maharaj asks that question, forgive me. So Sukadev Goswami answers saying, yes, the only way you can get out of this is real self-knowledge, is by really understanding what our relationship is and with God. And by understanding that and our nature, by studying God, we understand ourselves, then we are more aware. And it's just it's just that our heart has got polluted. When our heart has got polluted over many, many lifetimes, we are so conditioned to think in a certain way. So we have to ask the right questions and act the right way. And it begins by also having a relationship with Nityananda. So that's why when we sing also, I think the last one of the lines is when we sing Ahankare Matahoya Netai Pada Pasariya Asadyere Satyakori Mani. So when we've forgotten this relationship, and this relationship is eternal, we are all, parts and parcels of Krishna, and we have this eternal relationship with him. And when we have forgotten with this relationship, we take on a false identity. We take on a different roles depending on what we play in this world. And we take that so seriously that we start taking the asat yere satyakori mani. We take the illusion, the illusory as being the real. So this is what happens when we do not try to reawaken that original relationship that we already have. We are not trying to impose something artificial on us, but we are trying to reawaken this understanding that we already have. And when we do, we will see things a lot more clearly. We'll see what our roles are, and it's going to be more possible to live here and to practice spiritual life properly without getting too entangled into all these different roles that we do have to play. But we are not going to be so absorbed or too caught up when things don't go as well. So this is how there are many verses, and so I just try to take a few points and excuse me, and try and bring it out. And so that is with Lord Nityananda. So to understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes when he appeared here, we have to get Nityananda's mercy, Nityananda's blessing, but we also have to see it with accepting, with a lot of love. As the verse goes, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadayeva Hirdayeshu Vilokayanti. So when we need to, the pure devotee sees in his heart of hearts with pure devotion tinged with the salve of love. So we have to try and study it or try and understand it with some, we try to, we pray that we have some kind of affection when we trying to understand the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because you see, during the pastimes it's described that there's so much that he manifests. There is so much of himself, like his different potencies and his, who he is exactly. Sometimes he shows his forearm formed and everything, and all these different manifestations are not possible to be seen by any ordinary person. They need to they need to have that relationship with him out of love, and so they are able to. It's then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will reveal himself. And there are past times where after in Srivas Thakur's house where he has shown his different forms, and as soon as he leaves the house, he conceals himself. Everybody else thinks, oh, he's just Nimai Pandit, that amazing scholar who lives there and teaches, who used to teach grammar. And so he's just like an ordinary person, but it's only for those who really have affection for him. To the same degree, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will reveal himself. So when he appeared, he wanted to give everybody this love for Krishna. And so one day he is sitting with his associates, and he instructs Nityananda Prabhu. He instructs Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur to go out and to give. And the instruction was very very simple, but very succinct. He said, I want you to go out and give it to everybody, those who follow the Varnashram, those who don't follow the Varnashram, and those are even beyond the Varnashrams. I want you to give this to everybody. And a little bit of history, because there was some mention of the location here. So at that time, it is said, this is in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, it is said that a lot of people came. Even there was a lot of there were the Greeks and different kinds of people who moved past the river Sindh. And during that time, the locals, the Aryans and the Yavanas didn't quite mix, and there was a lot of tension between them. And also for that reason, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur to go out and to tell everybody about Krishna. He says, he says, Pratigare gare giya kara e bhiksha bala Krishna bhaja Krishna kara Krishna siksha. So he says, I want you to go out and give it to everybody. And he didn't say instruct, he said bhiksha. Bhiksha means beg. So this is very interesting, because a bhikshuka is a beggar. A bhiksha means to beg, and so he wants them to put themselves in the position of a bhikshuka, as a beggar. So when you go and ask, when you go to people's house, I want you to go and say the word of Krishna, Bala Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, worship Krishna, and Krishna Siksha, tell them to follow the instructions of Krishna. And he tells them to be in the position of a beggar. And it is interesting because a position of a beggar, you're completely dependent on whatever the donor gives. And in this sense, by going in that mood, you are trying to invoke the compassion in the donor. And the donor is going to feel they are doing them a favor. And so in that way, they are performing service. So it's a certain move that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommend that we approach, because he knows that would be effective. In a mood of begging people or asking them, please do it, not with instructions. And he told Nityananda Prabhu, Bala Krishna. In Sanskrit, we know Bala is strength, but Bala in Bengali means tell. Just speak the word Krishna. And it's very interesting again, because it is explained that there's two kinds of understanding. There is the Aviruddha and the Ruddha Vidhi. There is normal words. Normal words say words that we use normally, like eat, or eat, or cleaning, or food, or song, or dance, and this the normal day-to-day words that we would use, when it's used by a person that is not realized, it would just have his normal meaning, its basic meaning. But when the same words are used by a self-realized person, it would always remind them about Krishna or draw them to Krishna. And we can see how that is as well. When we talk about food, we think about, oh, it's prasada. And we think about cooking, we think about what is nice. Or when we think about song, like how to praise Krishna, or clean, let's clean for his pleasure. So these things remind, and they have a deeper meaning. In the same way, so that is so when somebody is more realized in that the message that they're going to come across, everything that they say is going to remind the person who listens about Krishna. And another example is that recently I was fortunate enough to I had a teacher who also taught me. She was teaching me and my kids some verses, but she also she showed me some mudras for Bharatanatyam. And Bharatanatyam is the classical Indian dance. It was actually taught to Brahma by Krishna himself, and it involves different mudras, and these mudras are used to it was used to depict the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, or even the different verses. It can be used for all of that. And so she showed me the mudras, and I picked it up quickly because I did it when I was young, and it all just came back to me. And so it was really nice. So we were learning this verse, and she was showing how to use the mudras to explain the verse. And I when I was trying to pick it up, I could see that when I show it to my kids, there's a certain amount of like, oh wow, this is interesting. It's a sense of curiosity. It's like, this is interesting. Oh, this is a nice form of art, and what does this mean? So this is what I was able to convey. Because I was not very fluent. Rusty with it, and my children, the audience, are also quite new. But I saw, and then later I saw a video of her dancing in front of the deities, and it's a service to dance in front of the deities every Mangalarti and Darshanarti. And when she dances, she's dancing with full understanding of what every mudra is, how the language is, how according to the kirtan that was in place, and whole movement is it's even it's coming from a heart, and it's invoking emotions, and she's doing it with full expression. And to the audience, and including me, when you see something like that and you feel like, I want that, I want what she's feeling. We all want to feel something, and the way she is able to dance, you're able to say, I want this too, I want to feel that way, I want to be able to perform in a way that it brings about my affection for Krishna. So that is the difference. So in the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was totally aware of Nityananda Prabhu's position, that when he speaks the word Krishna, he's not just imparting, this is Krishna, the name of the Lord. He is going to impart Krishna with the whole potency, the whole magic. He's going to, with the whole, everything that is it's in the name. He's going to be able to deliver that to the person who's receptive. And he is going to, and every other words that he speaks is going to make the person, is going to inspire the person to take it on. So it's amazing. It's how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he asked with Haridas Thakur, the Namacharya, to go with him. So they both went together. So he said, Bhaja Krishna and Krishna Siksha, get them to follow the instructions of Krishna. Like understanding, they have try and make them see that the learning about Krishna is it's pretty much an only form of learning, and every other form of learning comes from this, and so this was the instruction he gave them, and he said, and don't speak anything else. Don't speak to them anything else, and don't let them speak about anything else, and come back in the evening and report to me. So this is what he tells Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur, and so they went. And they went door to door, and there are people who are aware of the culture, so they invited him, please come and have a meal, and he said, no, we are not here to have anything to eat, but we came here to beg you to please chant Krishna's name, worship Krishna, and follow his instructions. And then they left, and they got different kinds of responses. So when they were the pious, they were like, for them it is like, this is amazing. How come we've never heard of this before, or this is amazing beauty, in these two people, and what they're giving is just amazing. So yes, we will do it. Yes, we will do it. They were very much encouraged, and this was with the pious, and the sujanas is what they're called. And then there are also the impious, and the impious were having a very different reaction. They just thought that they are mad. They just thought, like, you must have had some really bad association to come and tell us to do something like this, and they usually ask them to leave, and just said, you're probably very unfortunate to be in this position. And then there are also another group of people who didn't quite react very well, and these were those who were not invited or not allowed to be in Srivas Thakur's house during the private kirtan sessions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has, because it is very private, and not anybody is allowed, because he really wants to just be himself in his totality, so he doesn't want any random person to be there. So those who are not allowed to come, they got really angry. It's like, get out, we should have to beat these people, like it's just so much envy. They didn't quite appreciate. And Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur were just walk away from there, go to another house, and they would just laugh, and I thought that was a funny incident. It's really interesting, because those who are pious are attracted, and those who have got Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this love of God to everybody, regardless of their offenses, bar one, that is Vaishnava Aparad. So, and also the other fact is that he wouldn't want to interfere with their free will. So they went back. And to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and told everything, and then the next day they went again. And this time they saw two rogues, two drunkards, and they were really big, and they're fat, and they're walking, and as soon as they were walking, and they could see that all the other people were just running away from them and hiding in their houses, and they were shaking, and these two, when they are walking, sometimes they're embracing each other, and then sometimes they're pulling each other, chastising each other, calling each other with obscene names. And then as they walk, they would punch people in the way, and they were just frightening people. They were so. It was just a sight for Nityananda Prabhu, and when Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur saw them, and he was just amazed, and he was thinking. He asked, who are these two? And they said, well, they are brahmanas, and their fathers are very virtuous. The fathers of their mothers are very virtuous. So we don't know what happened. It's just due to bad association, and they've become like this, and they frighten us. And at this point, Nityananda Prabhu is contemplating, like he's thinking a few things. He says, I don't want to miss it because it's so nice. He says, so he says, So he says, if so these two, I mean, he got to know their reputation. Even there was no sins that these two has ever committed, all except Vaishnava Aparat. So these two have committed everything, and and so Nityananda Prabhu thought that, well, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived and he descended to give this love of God, and if he's able to change these two around, and if he's able to change this around, then I, as a Nityananda Prabhu, would be known as his servant, in his humility. And these two are so contaminated, so polluting, that people there, even if they walked past their shadow, or their shadow touched them, they would go and take a bath in the Ganga. And so he said, well, what if, he had this conversation with Haridas Thakur, what if we manage to change them around, and they become so pure that those who thought that or did that at first, by just looking at them, they would think they have bathed in the Ganga. So let's make this change, And the other people in the villages, you're crazy, you're going to get killed, don't do it, don't. And Haridas Thakur, of course, he knew the mind of Nityananda Prabhu, it's like, if you want, it will happen, it's whatever you want. And so he was trying to convince Haridas Thakur to let's go and give it to these guys. And so they're walking. So they walk towards, of course, we all know their names are Jagai and Madai. So they're walking towards Jagai and Madai, and they have their hands in the air, and they're shouting, Bala Krishna and Bhaja Krishna, and they're saying Krishna is our prana, he's our life and soul, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's arrived, and you should take into the chanting of Hare Krishna. And they went closer and closer to them, and when they heard it, it's described that they turned around and their eyes were so red and they were so angry, and they ran after them. So who are these people? Don't they know who live here? And they ran after Nityananda and Haridas Thakur and chased them. We have to kill them. Let's kill them. And Nityananda Prabhu and Haridas Thakur ran away in apparently fear, but they were laughing with each other. It's described they were laughing at each other, and of course the drunkards were too heavy, their bellies were too big, they couldn't keep up, and they lost them. But Nityananda Prabhu was saying, oh my gosh, I thought we could turn them to devotees today, but looks like we would be lucky if we at least stayed alive, And Haridas Thakur was saying, well, yeah, and you're going to give me premature death with your restlessness, of wanting to deliver these guys who've got no faith in the holy name. And so they just laughed among themselves, and they went back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and told them the story in the evening. Guess what? We met these two, and they, they related to some degree, and then Ganga Das and Srivas gave him the whole story, like who, their background, who they are, and how did they become, and gave them the whole story about this. And so then Nityananda Prabhu says, well, to Chaitanya Prabhu, if you want to deliver them, this would be the perfect way to show that your mercy has come to everybody, and I would feel like I've done my job as a servant. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells Nityananda, like, they are already delivered when they had your darshan, and if you want it, it will happen. So that was the exchange that they had, and and after that evening, as usual, they would have their nocturnal kirtan. So they were having this amazing kirtan that goes on for hours and hours. The location of where the kirtan was is in the house, and it's located near Ganga, and it just so happened that night Jagai and Madai chose to use that ghat, that bathing place, as their base where they're going to raid the houses. But they could hear from a distance, in this house there was kirtan happening, and they were drunk, but they were dancing to the beats of the kartals and the mridangas. They were just dancing and dancing, and they were drunk. And then it so happened that Nityananda walks by, and Nityananda is also... Oh, and what happened, back to the conversation back in the conversation in the house when they were relating to their day, what happened to Jagai and Madai. After it was spoken about that day's event, Haridas Thakur has a conversation with Advaita, and he tells Advaita, it's so hard to understand Nityananda Prabhu. He's so restless. He's always doing things that are crazy. Like in the rainy season, the Ganga is totally infested with crocodiles, and he doesn't seem to care. He just goes and floats in the water. And when he sees other boys there, he attacks them with water. Like he disturbs them so much. And when these boys go back crying to their parents, and the parents are coming back with sticks to try and teach Nityananda Prabhu a lesson, I have to go and pay my obeisances to the parents and beg for their forgiveness. And then, and then when he sees some girls, he says, "Oh, come and marry me." He's just so, he's so intoxicated. And now today he almost got me killed because he wants to go and tell them about Krishna to these two drunkards, And Haridas Thakur says, yes, he is. He was smiling, and he says, yes, he is drunk, but he's not drunk in like Jagai and Madai. He's drunk in love of God, which is why his behavior is like that. But don't worry, if Nityananda Prabhu wants this to happen, you will see it happen. So fast forward to the story where, so when this Jagai and Madai were there dancing away, and they came across Nityananda Prabhu, and Nityananda Prabhu saw them, and this is the part of the story everybody knows as well. So when they saw Nityananda Prabhu, he said, "What is your name?" And he said, Nityananda Prabhu says, "My name is Avaduta." And Madai hits him with a clay pot that cracks on his head, and the blood pours, and there's blood everywhere. And Jagai is actually quite taken, and as Madai is about to approach again to hit him, Jagai actually stops Madai. So when Jagai stops Madai, the scene stops, but somebody who have already witnessed the story quickly runs to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and informs him what has happened. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he heard that Nityananda got hit and he's bleeding, he just lost it. He just ran out. He was so angry. He was shouting, "Chakra, Chakra, Chakra." And the interesting thing is that apparently some of them actually did see it. Those were able to see it. And as soon as he arrived, Nityananda stopped Chaitanya Prabhu. Don't kill them. Remember what we came here for. And besides, Jagai actually stopped Madai from hitting me. He tried to protect me. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard that, it's like Jagai tried to stop. He immediately embraced Jagai. And when he embraced Jagai, he just removed all his sins and actually gave him love of Krishna. He was so intense for Jagai that he couldn't stand. He just fell on the ground and he was crying in ecstasy. And if you can imagine the scene when he's crying in ecstasy, holding on to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's feet, Madai is looking at this. They are peas in a pod. They used to do the crimes together, and one wants to do, the other one would instigate it, and different things. And so when he saw Jagai is having these emotions, he is like, well, I want this, and he actually wanted that change for himself. He wanted to feel what Jagai is feeling. And so he asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you cannot be unfair. You've given him this. Will you please give me the same? And I want to experience, and I want to have this transformation too, And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I can't because you've hurt Nityananda Prabhu. For me, his body is more dear to me than my own. And he's a lot, he's so important to me, and you've committed Vaishnav aparad. And there's a whole section about how Vaishnav aparad is just like the mad elephant offense, it's just, it's a complete stop. It says, like, if there's any assembly where a Vaishnav aparad is done, everybody, everybody, it affects everybody, even though all the other religious principles are followed. And there is just no chance. So in this case, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was telling him, unless Nityananda Prabhu forgives you, then you can. So Nityananda Prabhu, Madai goes back to Nityananda Prabhu and begs for his forgiveness and holds his feet to his chest. And Nityananda Prabhu, of course, forgives him. And they both, at that time, they both got Krishna's, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's blessing, and they were both in total ecstasy. Everybody was just Haribol, Haribol, Hare Krishna, and they were just so happy to see this. And they walked back to the house with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita, Gadadhar, Srivas, and there's a list of 20, 30 names. And Vrindavan Das Thakur says, well, may Vyasadev give us the rest of the names, because these are all extremely confidential devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when they entered the house, they were all assembled there, and here is Jagai and Madai sitting, looking at them, and they are crying. They're feeling so much love, and they're crying and they're in ecstasy, but they can't speak. They're choked. It's a little bit like Dhruva Maharaj. When he saw Krishna, he wasn't able to speak. And what happened was Krishna had to touch his head with a conch shell, and then from within he's able to give words of glorification. And it's very interesting, because words of glorifying Krishna doesn't come automatically. It has to be inspired from within. So in the same way, Jagai and Madai couldn't quite speak properly. And then, noticing that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu inspired them, they started speaking, and they're saying, now, we can really see who you are, and that you are Krishna yourself, and we can see who everybody really is, who is everybody really are in their position, and we are extremely undeserving of this mercy. And they compared themselves, like even when you came as Krishna, with the demons, with Kamsa and all the other demons, at least they saw you, they saw Krishna. And when they were thinking of Krishna with enmity, or in fear, they were thinking of him, they were remembering him, they knew everything about him, they were able to see. And when you killed them, you gave them Vaikuntha. They were able to go to the spiritual world. But with us, we didn't care who you were. We didn't know what you were like. We didn't know anything about you. And what you have given us is even greater. That is love of Krishna in Golaka Vrindavan. That is to have that inner circle of having a relationship with him. The highest. It's even beyond Vaikuntha. And we didn't even deserve it. And so what you've given us is so great, and we don't deserve this at all. So it is very, I think the story, Jagai and Madai's story, really, I thought would explain these few verses, how Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna and Balaram came as Nityananda Prabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to give this mercy. And he's given mercy to Jagai and Madai. Like I said, there was no sins they haven't done. And it's actually even described there's 6 categories of sins, and each category, there's 30 to 50 different kinds of sins, like having relations with anybody other than your wife, in different variety. They're all different kinds of sins. But also sins like subtler sins, like borrowing people money with interest is considered a sin, or even and other things like if you try to taint the reputation of a respectable person by by saying wrong things, that'll be a sin. And this is apart from plundering and killing brahmanas and cow eating and meat eating and wine. This is beyond all of that. They have done everything. And there's actually another pastime that happens after this incident where Yamaraj actually asks Chitragupta. Chitragupta is his private secretary, and Chitragupta's descendants are the scribes. They keep record of everybody's pious and impious activities. So Yamaraj, we have to remember, when all these pastimes are happening, all the demigods are watching this, and it is described that Mahadeva is actually present pretty much every day, visible to only a few people to try and witness these pastimes. So when all these demigods realized what happened to Jagai Madai, they were jumping. And when Yamaraj also saw, he wanted to know. So he asked Chitragupta, can you tell me what sins did they do? That this is amazing. And Chitragupta says, well, his descendants, like I say, are all the scribes. So if I got 100 scribes to write exactly what sins Jagai and Madai did for 1 month, I still won't be finished. That is the amount of sins that these two have committed. And then when Yamaraj heard that, he just fell unconscious on his chariot. And he totally was in shock. Well, anyway, the story continues, but the idea is that is the mercy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to Jagai Madai and to all of us, because we are all in the same boat. We all are. So if there is any questions, please feel free to ask. But I will end it here. So a few things to take away is that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu are none different from Krishna and Balaram. And in order to approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we have to, and in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, we need to approach Nityananda Prabhu and really grab on hold to his feet and pray for his mercy. And in our path, it is from the story, it is also very, we can pick many different things on how to approach people to tell them about Krishna, and also how to, the importance of not committing Vaishnava aparad. It's everywhere I read, this seems to be like the same thing over and over again, and it's something to be really, really aware of. The other thing I would also like to just add is, anyway, this story is beautiful, and this story is really tells what is possibly in hope for us, and that we should try, like when Jagai and Madai, even after getting delivered, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says they are none different from me, and they didn't change, and they felt so remorseful of all the things they've done, and especially with Madai, because he hit Nityananda Prabhu. So when he went to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, well, why don't you build a ghat near Ganga and ask your forgiveness for everybody who takes a bath there? And he did it. And he actually went there and paid obeisances to everyone who goes and takes a bath. And some people would forgive, some people would not be very nice, but he took it all with great humility, because he felt, I deserve this. So it is we have to approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great humility as well, knowing that we don't actually deserve this mercy. I will stop here. Thank you very much. Is there any questions from, Anyway, let me check. Sorry, looks like there is no questions. So thank you so much for listening, and forgive me for all the mistakes that I did in the beginning. And I really enjoyed that. Thank you. Hare Krishna.